Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome back to Social Confoes. I'm in the Lucky D show, or I don't know what it is today. Sean, look, help me out here. What are we doing?
It's a social confoes about the Lucky D show. No, it's about one of the originator of the Lucky D show. Actually, the person who also made up or suggested the name, and we kind of had to run with it.
Yeah, because what did you guys call it beforehand? It was just the Sean, look, and something Dion show.
No, it was the Brunings podcast. I think that was the official name.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, it's very interesting because we're bringing in actually your other co-host here in for this conversation, and I'm actually not sure what to expect tonight because it's a different angle which I'm not very familiar with, but I'm very interested and looking forward to on how actually the flow of the conversation will flow. And I have some interesting things in mind that I'm ready to throw at Dion. So without further ado, Sean-Luc, ready to introduce our guest for tonight?
I'm actually not ready to introduce him just yet. He is popping back in to the back office, but there are two stories about uh, how I know our guest for today. The first story, which now is kind of controversial because of the introduction, is I once during Sinterklaas, which is a tradition we talked about with Doreen, I once was Black Pete. So it's technically blackface, but part of a tradition. And bear in mind, before people are like, "What you were blackface once? You were blackface?" Keep in mind, this was in the early '90s, and I was 10 years old. So that kind of makes me feel really old right now. But it was a Sinterklaas tradition, and I was dressed up as one of the characters, Black Pete, which is a very controversial figure. Now we are more culturally aware. And our guest recognized me completely
Like through the paint and everything.
through the paint and everything. I mean, I could have my face could be completely black and everything, but he just recognized me. And him being a young kid, like no older than I think 6 or 7, and it's a long time ago. He was constantly coming to me, Shaluk, Shaluk, give me more candy, give me more candy, Shaluk, Shaluk, give me more candy, give me more candy. And I was like, seriously? So for everybody who's in this discussion saying like, yeah, and we also wear the paint so that people don't recognize us, give me a break. He recognized me completely. I'm not sure if he even remembers this story. But it was at Ons Araf. It was during a Sinterklaas celebration. And the second thing I remember from our early youth was I had a really, really nice football shirt, like a black shirt with a very nice. I actually don't remember the player, so I'm hoping he remember who the player was. And I was kind of at the end of my junior football career, and I was like, okay, I want to hand this shirt to the best player on the pitch today. And he was the best player on the pitch that day, and he got the shirt. So those are my early memories. And of course, during this talk, we're gonna go into a little bit deeper into the later memories. But our guest for today is a 9-time national champion. He's a Caribbean champion with Suriname. He has represented Suriname for multiple sporting events because he's also the commentator, one of the color commentators for our national team whenever they play. He was the reporter, the official reporter for Nacho when they were in the Gold Cup last month. So without further ado, Dion Brunings.
Hello, hello. What introduction, man. I completely forgot about that era story. And I'm happy that you mentioned that because exactly when you said, Shalik, give me more candy, that's when I could recall, oh yeah, I could remember. And when you said Ons Araf, I was there. So no, I actually did forget about that story. but it's still there. Hi guys, I'm Dion.
Dion, you're Diego, you're on mute.
Sorry about it. Yeah. So quick two things. So we go straight into that. So first thing, how does it feel to start on time?
Uh, I don't accept what you mean about that.
We'll get into this a bit later. but 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 going back to Shanuk's story, so what did you exactly, or how did you were you able to recognize Shanuk with all the the costume and the paint and everything? How did you know it was him, and how you were you able to identify him?
Oh man, it's so long ago. But Shaluk and I, we played football for, yeah, I think 2 times a week, about a year. So it's not really difficult to, yeah, beneath all the makeup to see him. And it's Suriname, man. So when they do black feet in Holland or whatever, what they do, the paint stays on their face. But when you do it in Suriname and you're active, you're sweating all over the place. So he is by nature not the blackest person on earth. So it wears off pretty quickly, and you can see right through it. And if you know the guy, you know exactly who it is. So it wasn't that difficult.
Is this a skill you've developed over the years that you're easily to able to recognize people through their mannerisms, to the way they walk, or just the way they look from the back? Are you able to identify many people in this way, or was it just Shanluk?
There's a just a look. It could be. I could recognize people pretty easily about the way they speak as well, of course, and the way they walk, the way they move. That is a skill that I wasn't really aware of, but now that you say it, I think I can do that because I'm also a trainer, of course, so I'm a little bit fascinated how people move, etc., etc. And I think it was from a young age that already required those set of skills. But it isn't really difficult to get, yeah, to pick Shelly out of a bunch. Is not that difficult. But how the heck did you that? Why were you black in Aunt's Arab to start with?
I
What's
have
the
no
what's the
idea.
plan?
I have no recollection, but you kind of know how these things go. Some parents talk with other parents and like, yeah, and we need helpers for the celebration. And then probably my mom said, or I even said like, yeah, I'll help out. And they were like, yeah, we need a couple of black beats. Here's the costume. Good luck. And I was like, okay, sure. And I mean, I have no recollection of how that happened. I really don't know. But I'm a little bit worried, Dion. Um, the end. It's somebody is mentioning it's very choppy. The stream is very choppy today. So how is it that during our broadcast your internet is always top notch, and today the internet is kind of choppy?
I have no clue, man. I have no clue. Maybe somebody in my house is just doing a video call or something like that. I'm gonna check it out. I have no idea why the internet. I normally don't have Tuesday is my day off from media, so I think that's the reason.
Yeah, should we take us a quick second to check and try to reset? Otherwise, the experience might be
Yeah, sure. I mean,
afterward.
Yeah,
yeah.
let's do that. Let's do it. Give,
Okay.
give me give me 3 seconds.
Yeah, while Dion checks that out, so tell us more about, I guess, you've known Dion from way back. When did I guess the friendship, you guys work on projects together, you guys sport, was it all since a young age, since you guys started doing the fun stuff as kids and then gradually going to sports, or was it the
Okay.
sports that really kicked it off?
Okay, so let's clear. I'm gonna let Dion tell the story of us being a team, like being a duo, and how we became beach volleyball partners. We were at the time already in the same team. We both played for Condor in our youth for volleyball. Um, so Dion and I know each other through sports, also on SRF and like mutual friends and connections. So we actually started playing together, like really bonding when I think we differ about 2 years. So we really started bonding when I think I was around 16 and he was around 14. That's when we really became close friends. And that's true volleyball actually. But we've known each other since like even 10 years before that actually. But the real connection was volleyball. I think Dion is back now and this looks a lot cleaner. Yeah,
Yeah, I think this is a lot cleaner. Yeah, I think yeah, my sister was doing a video call, so I asked her to do the voice call. That works better, and I hope this enhances the experience.
it does.
It's a
It does.
significant improvement. Yeah, I was just
Awesome.
asking Shanluk about the your mutual history together with taking candy and going into sports, and yeah, you guys played volleyball together, and I was asking him where did that that true bond of sporting and that click happen between you guys? Was it really through sports, or because from a young age you guys kind of already knew each other from mutual events and I guess friends? But where did that really kick off and that kind of that brotherhood kind of manifested?
So it actually really kicked off when we started to play volleyball. We had a pretty good junior team, a pretty good youth team. We were successful and we trained a lot. We so it actually started with volleyball. It really kicked off when we did beach volleyball tournaments. So we were junior beach volleyball champion, and you know how that go. I don't know if you know how that goes, but you're playing a tournament. You're playing a tournament at Cola Creek or somewhere uptown, not uptown, um, out of town, and then you sleep together in one room because you need to move early in the morning. So then you bond, you create a bond, and yeah, that's actually how we spent time together. But you bond because you have something in common, and I think we had a lot of mutual respect, and that's still the case. So he's one of the people who always listens. He doesn't wait to speak, so and I think I'm the same. But actually we kicked it off when we played beach volleyball. But even before that, when we played football in Oase, we had a pretty good relationship, I think. And I think it's all started with beach volleyball. But even before that, when he gave me the candy at Ons Erof, I was sold, man. Yeah, that's how easy I am.
So I think beach volleyball is it's very much. I mean, the first championship that really kicked things off. There is a funny downside because uh, Jeff is also mentioning like it's a funny story. Started off with fun stuff. So there's actually a story to our first uh, beach volleyball championship that with our first beach volleyball championship, we won like a coupon, a sports coupon to a sports store where I actually bought a pair of shoes. And those shoes was one of the reasons we got eliminated in the playoffs next year because the shoes were like these athletic shoes and they had the soles didn't have any grip. Like at one of the most crucial moments in the playoffs next year, Dion passes me a ball and I slip and I am not there to actually hit the ball. And we actually lose that set and we lose the match. So there are a lot of funny snippets and stories. But I think the greatest thing about why we bonded quite well with beach volleyball is with volleyball, you have six teammates. You're with the six of you in one team. So there are a lot of things that can go wrong why you don't score a point. Whereas beach volleyball, there are two people. And if there's a mistake that's made, it's either me or you. And both of us are like people that are like, okay, this was my mistake. So it was really easy to play together because it was always like one of us admitting like we should have been better at that point. There was never a discussion of you should have done that or you should have done that. And for people that have never seen Dion play like sports, it's kind of like going all out. It's like Russell Westbrook style. It's always 110%. So for me on a beach volleyball field, I could never say, Dion, you're not going hard enough because it was always going 110%. So that for me as a beach volleyball partner was always kind of a motivation. So if something went wrong, I actually always felt like it was my fault. And if something went wrong, it was always like he was feeling like it was his fault. So that kind of made us such a strong beach volleyball team.
Yeah, and yeah, so it is a yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. It is you are your partner, and you learn a lot with beach volleyball because I don't know if yeah, this is very sport specific, but beach volleyball is a certain kind of sport which you can't really let your the team you're playing against take a big lead. So you need to be, yeah, you need to talk with each other without saying words. So that is pretty important, and that was the first click that I actually had with Jean Luc. He was the first person I won a championship with, so that I learned a lot of actually my whole career with that first championship, because when you get that first win, it sets off a whole lot. It does something with you as a person. So I'm pretty happy about that experience.
Yeah, it kind of sets the tone, right? And do you feel like looking at sports in general, and in this case, we were comparing beach volleyball and the regular volleyball with six people in a team. And we've had this conversation with Sandrina as well a few weeks back. She's also from the women's volleyball champions a few years, together with your sister, Cheryl. And you kind of had, first of all, is the volleyball thing a family thing?
Um,
Or is
yeah,
it
yeah, I
just
don't
a
know.
coincidence
We
that, brother, sister,
It's
both
no
champions?
coincidence. It's no coincidence. So my uncle, he played for Condor, the team which I started with, which I played with Chaluk, and we always went and look at our uncle. I was a football player in my under 13 years, and I made a switch to play volleyball after we finally got an invite to play in the juniors team. So my uncle Patrick Brunings, he played in the highest in team A of Condor, and that's when I think I rolled into it. And the next week my sister came along, and yeah, we just instantly fell in love with the thing. So yeah, it is a more like a brother sister and uncle thing more than a
Yeah.
family thing. But yeah, yeah, it is
Okay,
it's no
got it.
coincidence.
Awesome. But that kind of makes sense, yeah. And you have each other to practice with, and it shows that you guys became champions. But coming back to the broader question on sports in general, and you mentioned that being a two-man team with beach volleyball, it requires a different type of trust in each other, a kind of different type of communication, and counting on each other. And for a bigger team with six people, and looking at other types of sports with bigger teams, how do you feel like the dynamic is between smaller smaller teams like two people sports versus something like basketball or football with 11 people on a field? How does that teamwork and communication translate to, I guess, outside the sport?
So first of all, it is, you have a lot more individual responsibility if the team is smaller, so that is easier. If you can't hide from the fact that it's your fault, or you can't hide from the fact that you made a point. So you have a lot more responsibility, and that makes it lot more easy to get somewhere. But the other thing, and I personally think that that is the reason why we are not as good as we are in team sports, it's a lot more complex in every sense of the word. So it's a lot more complex to get from point A to point B. You know, when you need to score a ball, it needs to touch three or four players, and they need to be disciplined. They need to be on the right position. They need to give 100% on the exact moment. So it is complex in tactics. More, it's complex for the trainer, to the coach, the manager, to get this message to everybody. So it's more complex. It's more complex to get a training started, because if one player is late and you have a two-man team, yeah, then okay, just one player is late. But if you need to count on 23 players to get the training started, it's more complex. It's more difficult. If you need to get 23 shoes for 23 players, 23 pair of shoes, it's more complex and it's more difficult. And that organization, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. So that is the big difference between, in my eyes, between individual sports when you play to a side, and when you play 11 against 11. The organization is much, much, much more complex, and it says a lot about our country, where we're at, if we the manner in which we the results that we get.
So I do have to ask this question then, and we're going to jump straight into sports. We've seen a lot of individual sports success. Like if you look at Anthony Nesty, Leticia Frisda, but now more commonly, Jarcinho, Biggie Boy, Jair Chonefa, Miguel Faasa, Renzo. It's like all these individual athletes that either make it to the Olympics, get international medals, compared to our sports teams. Whereas for volleyball, we're quite successful with sports and less successful with, for instance, beach volleyball. What's the reason we haven't found a duo yet, like a local Surinamese duo, that can compete on an international level and even win or get regional medals? What do you think is and you can also say it from your experience.
To be honest, I don't really think there's a bigger difference, because in volleyball we're top in the Caribbean section. So I think we're with Trinidad, we're right up there. But for beach volleyball, there are not really Caribbean championships. So the only tournaments that we play are the top of the Norseca, and it's like world top. You know, you have Cuba, you have Mexico, you have the United States, and because we are that lowly ranked, the first matches which we always play against the top ranked teams, and that'll be the US. And the next match you'll play against the loser of another big team. So I don't really think we're that far off. But the simple reason yeah why we're better in indoor volleyball than beach volleyball is training. You know, when we got the Caribbean Championship, we trained 7 times a week. When we do beach volleyball, we only do beach volleyball when we have international tournaments to play. So at the end of the day, doesn't matter if it's 11 against 11 football. It doesn't matter if it's Miguel Van Asse who does the triple jump. The the training makes the difference. You know, if Asen trains 3 times a week, if our national football team would train 3 times a day, if our national football team would train 3 times a day, that would also be world class. But we just can't organize that, and that's the problem. But to be specific about your question, we don't play enough beach volleyball to be considered top of the region, and there aren't Caribbean championships to compete against our level. So that's why the buzz is less on the Caribbean, on the beach volleyball side of things.
Okay,
That kind of
Kay.
makes sense. You got to put in the hours basically to match, and you need that local regional competitiveness to challenge you, to rival you. Exactly. Um,
Are you
and yeah,
gonna jump into the questions?
yeah, I'm going through the comments. You're getting a compliment from Suleika. She likes your plain green background, so it works.
Thanks, thanks.
And question here from Gregory. Is it correct that we're Caribbean volleyball champions, or did he mishear that?
No. That's definitely true. The last tournament that was played was, phew, it's a time ago. I I'm a little bit sport blank because of COVID. So I think the year was 2018,
Oh, that's
which
quite a
we played,
2019?
yeah.
Was
or
it the 19?
2019.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit blank, but I think it's 2019. The Caribbean Volleyball Championships were held in Suriname, and we won that tournament. So we're the best of the Caribbean at this point in time. After that, we played some intercontinental tournaments. Right now, a national team is going to the Dominican Republic to play a regional championship. So in the Caribbean, we are the best in the men's section. Yes, so that is correct.
Can you tell us like the road to the Caribbean Championship? And you've participated in a couple of Caribbean Championships. You had to sacrifice something as well this time around. How was this experience different from the previous experiences?
Okay. First of all, I actually want to bring this back to our national football team. I don't know if you guys have any problems with that, because I spoke to a former teammate about this, and he said he was pretty discouraged that I told him that we lost to Costa Rica because of the fact that Costa Rica played more matches with each other, and our national team just played about 4 or 5 matches internationally in this setting. You can't cheat progress. So the win that we got for the national fight by the of the Caribbean Cup did not come by accident. We played a lot of tournaments. The tournament started way back in 2012 when we had the World Cup qualifiers. We won Barbados. After that, we played Caribbean Cups. We lost dramatically. After that, we played another bunch of World Cup qualifiers, which we won. After that, we played Caribbean Cup with, I presume, almost the same team, which we lost very, very, very badly. And that loss really, really hurt, because you need to. Volleyball is a lot different than the other sports, the other team sports. For example, on national football team, they get, for every training they get something. They get, I don't want to say the amount of money that they get, but they get something for every training. Or when they're at the tournament, they get about between $50 and $100 a day. We Yeah, we actually don't get anything. It's almost slave labor that we're doing. So we're trading 7 days a week. We're investing a lot, and it goes pretty deep. So you need to cover your food. You need to cover the even you have a lot of costs even washing your clothes. So when you do that 7 times a week for a couple of months, I think for 4 months, 7 times a week is pretty heavy. When you lose, it hits hard. It hits very, very, very hard. And then you're gonna get to know yourself. What do you do after that? Do you continue with the same enthusiasm, or do you back down? And I think the loss that we had in, I think it's 2015, 16, I think it's 16 in Trinidad, that set the stage for us to finish the job in the next Caribbean Cup. So we picked things up, and we trained 7 times a week again, which was pretty difficult. And our win in Suriname was a very, very, very strange feeling. I think the only reason why we won was because we just trained not harder, not maybe not even better. We just trained more than our the teams we played against. So I wasn't even happy. I didn't even know what was happening, but everything went so smooth, everything went so easy. And after the last ball, you're like, oh, yeah, we won. God damn it, this is done. This is finished. I can have some vacation or sorts. So yeah, it was difficult, but to answer your question, it didn't come by. Yeah, it wasn't a
It
mis
wasn't an accident or just
it
a
wasn't
lucky.
an accident, man. It was a lot of tournaments that we played, a lot of less geld, as we put it in Dutch. A lot of, yeah, it was a lot of
Yeah, a lot of
hours.
sacrifice and self investment
Phew,
in that sense. And I guess
phew.
I'm gonna tie my question in with Jeff's comment slash question. So I'm going through Jeff's comment first. He says internally we need to structure things concerning beach volleyball, and I mean we don't lack talent, but we need to find them. So talking about scouting, organization, talent scouting, tournaments, schools, etc., and then build on from that point. Actually, this is a common national sport problem. So basically, all types of sports on a national scale. And we need structure, we need planning, and we need execution. And his question is, can you make enough money from playing volleyball in Suriname to have an average income? If not, what would be an option? And I think you already mentioned, as a volleyball players compared to the football teams, you guys didn't get, I guess, a compensation or get an income from any types of source.
There's no money in volleyball. Like football, it's like a very commercial sport. Like
Yeah.
also on a higher level.
My question then comes. I'm glad you mentioned. I couldn't come up with the word commercial. Jean-Luc mentioned football is a very commercial sport, and just to sort of general in sports, at what point would you consider it worthwhile to commercialize, or would a professional athlete or sporter um, be worthy or have to be paid to perform or execute in their sport?
Sorry, I don't understand the question. could you rephrase?
Yeah, I'm gonna try and rephrase it. So you guys don't make money from volleyball at this point. Football is a more commercialized sport, as Jean-Luc said. At what point, I'm gonna stay to volleyball because that's your domain. Would you consider it worthwhile, or should people invest in a commercialized football so that the players that play on a national level can get paid? Or what would be
So
required to get to that point?
when is something worthwhile to invest? When there are enough fans. That's plain and simple. That's the reason why football is much more commercial. That's the reason why the sports in the United States is much more commercial. There are a lot more people who are involved. If there are a lot more people, there are a lot more, basically, people to get money from. So when we have a formula that we produce to get people in the stadiums, to get people to watch us on TV, then it's worthwhile to invest so that the people who are putting their money in the sport, they can get their money back. That's in on a commercial sense of it. That's the only reason to make it to make it healthy. That's one of the manners how you could do it. The other manner is, of course, if there are a lot of people with a lot of money who just want to do that as a hobby. But that's not, in my opinion, that's not feasible. That's not
Yeah, it's not
commercially.
sustainable for the average person.
Yeah, it's not sustainable. So that's, yeah, that's in my eyes. There needs to be a lot more done on getting more fans involved, getting more average people involved. Yeah, that's the trick. If you can get from all the fans, if you can get $100, but 100 SRD per 2 weeks, that needs to pay for everything, and that's the way to go. But that is pretty difficult, but that's the only way, in my opinion.
In that setting, I'd consider like a match, kind of like a show, as you would go to a theater show. You pay the performance, you go to watch the sport for the excitement. So I've kind of quickly draw that parallel to seeing this as a kind of it's sporting could be a show business to if you commercialize it like that. And I can see where you're coming from, and especially with the scale we have here, getting to that stage and getting that investment to, get all of that practice if you're not committed enough to go through all that yourself and a self investment like you guys did for the Caribbean Cup competition, it's going to be really hard to compete on on an international level, especially if you have bigger teams. For individual sports, it's more accessible because it's one person. It still requires a lot of investment and effort from that individual, but there's less variables in that case, right? That's kind of how I see it based on your explanation on that.
Yeah, that's true. It's a smaller investment to get one player to the Olympics than to get 23 players to the Olympics, and to train them to get them ready is a whole other, it's a whole other separate investment. So to getting them there already is pretty difficult, and to get them there to perform is difficult, and to get them there to get your money back is a whole nother story. So it's yeah, but that's in my eyes is one of the main purposes of sports. You know, it's been pretty shitty in Suriname the past couple of 2 3 years. The only light points in our country is sports. The only time that I saw Suriname united was with our national football team. The the impact that Biggie Boy made on this country worldwide, people from Russia are asking me to do interviews right now. It's out of this world. So there is a playing field there for investors to get their money back, but yeah, we need to get the work done, and we need to get the know-how in the correct places.
So this is a marketing question because I want to quickly jump into Saran's comment like how can we attract more fans for volleyball in Suriname? If I remember correctly, this the stadium it was Ismay, I think the finals of the Caribbean Cup was played in Ismay. Ismay was jam packed. Now, Ismay isn't the biggest sports venue. I remember Amos when we used to play, it was sports packed. But even basketball, like when I was in high school, we went to the playoffs of the basketball, the Surinamese Basketball Association, and NIS was sold out. Did something happen with sports fandom in Suriname in the last 10 years? Or is volleyball still on that level as I remember it?
Yeah, a lot has happened. It goes hand in hand with economics. There are much less sports people in the country than 10 years ago. So that's one of the difference. There is much less money to invest to get a jam-packed stadium, to get cheerleaders on board, to get a DJ there, to get a brass band there. So there's less money, and people are yeah, they're a little bit more, they're they're turning a dollar twice before they invest it in their company. Latstan investing it in a in a sporting event. So that does change things, but you can see that there are still points which you can see that there is a market for this. When our national teams play, it's jam packed. When and almost every sport, when our national basketball team is doing a good job, NIS was full. When if anybody, if there was no COVID and we was playing in Andre Kamperveen Stadium with this national team, we would have a big problem. It would be packed, packed, packed. So there's still a market for it, but of course the level is a little bit lower on the in the national competitions. But there are matches. But the of course, to get every local match a sold out stadium, that is pretty difficult, and that is something we need to look into. But I think there are still a decent amount of matches which I have seen, which I've been to, that were still packed enough for me.
Okay, I do want to get back to that, but I want to do a quick jump because before you came back to Suriname, you studied in the Netherlands, and I want to relate it to Sulaiha's comment because Sulaiha says make the short shorter. Um, I'm gonna quickly share that actually when I was playing volleyball in the Netherlands, Suriname is like our style of playing, and the outfits we were even on a volleyball court we wear basketball shorts because a lot of volleyball players were inspired by basketball players, especially guys that jump really high and actually have basketball players as their idols, and they wear basketball shorts on a volleyball court. And there was actually a girl in Tilburg that complained, and everybody knew it was about me, saying like, "Why do men play in long shorts, basketball shorts, instead of the short volleyball shorts?" So for me, one of the biggest difference. There are a lot of difference, but one of the biggest difference in Suriname compared to the Netherlands is not actually the shorts, but is the focus on which the game is played. So in Suriname, sports is a lot about showmanship. If you have showmanship, you're beloved. If you're the best player on the team, you can practically do whatever you want off the court, but depending on where you play, you will still get put up in the starting lineup. Whereas in the Netherlands, even if you're the best player in the team, if you show up late for practice a couple of times, you will get benched. So my biggest question for Dion is what's for you has been the biggest difference playing volleyball in Suriname or playing volleyball abroad, like for instance in the Netherlands?
Ooh, what is the biggest difference? So the one of the biggest differences is in Holland we trained less. So it was I'm not a super talent. So I need to put in the hours to get a certain level. So that was a big difference. In Holland we trained I wasn't playing the Eredivisie or Eerste Divisie. My last year I was gonna play second division, and in the second division you were also gonna train 3 times a week. That's not enough. It's a glorified hobby if you train 3 times a week. So that was the first difference. Second difference was, yeah, it's a lot more about keeping a certain level for a long time. Because in Holland, you played the system of actually how the football competitions are played. So you play it a year long, and at the end of the year, the team with the most points is the champion. But volleyball is actually an American sport, and the American sports they always play to a climax. So they have playoffs, and it was a little bit difficult for me to keep that consistent level than playing to a climax. In all competitions that I played in volleyball, it was also always you have a group phase or you have a regular season, and after the regular season, you have a playoff. So you need to bring a whole different level of competition when you play in the playoffs. You need to bring a whole different level of tactical awareness in the playoffs. And in Holland, only in the A League, as it was called then, I think it still is, that was the only league which you played playoffs. Of course, you have promotion and you have relegation battles, but that's still not the same. You have only one match, and then it's just over with. If you have bad luck, you play a tournament within with 3 teams. But that I think is a big difference between the competition in Holland and the volleyball competitions in this part of the world. But to go back to your point regarding it's more of a flair game. I don't want to get all philosophical, but I think it has a lot to do with, of course, this part of the world. But I also almost want to make a case for the fact that, A, inspired by who are you? Are you inspired by United States? Are you inspired by a Brazilian? And I even want to make a case about the temperature. I feel that the temperature, the countries with a warmer climate, they have a lot warmer game. I don't know if you could put it like that, in which the countries in
The energy is
Russia, the
different.
countries,
There's a
the
different
energy is
energy.
different. Yeah, 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 and they sustain the level a lot longer in those parts of the world. So Poland play a lot different ball game. Holland plays a lot different. Germany plays a lot different. Russia plays a lot different, and not even only in volleyball. It's a different kind of mentality, and it's a different type of training. Yeah, let's leave it at that for at this point.
No, that's some very good observations. That's kind of out of the technicalities of the sport himself, kind of exterior influences that influence the way it's perceived. But coming quickly back to the comparison, on a professional level, based on experience here in Suriname and in the Netherlands, do professional players there, as you had said, are there enough fans to invest in professional players there?
To tell you the truth, not really.
Okay, so
So
it's
in
not just
Holland,
a local problem here. It's
no,
more like the
no,
sport.
no. So I trained with a couple of the Eredivisie players on the beach, because beach I played a little bit on a higher level. So I trained with a couple of guys who were playing like Eredivisie A League, as it was called then, and they were like top players. They were top four teams. They were starters. They were the captains, and he got about 700 euros a month, and that is not enough to when you're retired to make a living off. So a lot of them already had another job to attend, a part-time job. So even in Holland, it wasn't that sustainable. Even in Holland, if you're really, really, really good, you go to Italy, or you go to Poland, you go to Russia, if you're that good. But yeah, even in Holland, and even in Holland won the Olympics, you don't really get back stadiums for regular season games. So yeah, difficult
No.
sport. I hope I can still inspire the people there who want to stay and play volleyball. Though it's an amazing sport,
Yeah,
guys.
you don't do it for the money if you love the sport, basically. But yeah, those are some things to definitely take into consideration. Especially, it very depends on where you are and where you're going pro, based on this. But before we flip to the section where you mentioned, these athletes have another job, they have something after their career or during their career. We want to dive into that for a bit, but I think this is an opportune time to bring in the underrated, overrated, while we transition to that section. So Dion, we're gonna name a few topics. I'll come up with two. Sean-Luc will bring up two, and you just tell us if you think it's overrated or underrated, and maybe give a short explanation why, if it's required. So to kick it off, I'll start with I I guess a controversial one, and then we'll go with the easy one. The Olympics. Do you think it's overrated or underrated?
Oh God, I think it's about right. I think
About
it's
right?
about right. It's yeah, 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 yeah. Do I sit on the fence if I make that assessment? Do I really need to choose a side?
No, that's a
You
fair
can say
assessment. Yeah.
properly rated, yeah. But you could
Yeah, I think it's
elaborate
about right.
why. Yeah.
So it's definitely not underrated, because sports which are normally not well watched, as gymnastics, as yeah, synchronized swimming, etc., they get their platform to show off. So it's definitely not underrated. If you get a gold medal, your country is put on the map immediately. So it's definitely not underrated. Is it overrated? Yeah. Yeah, no, it's not. It's not overrated, man. It's actually my explanation being overrated implies for that. But no. I think it's about right. I think we're at a turning point at this after this Olympics, because it was getting a little bit bleh, in my opinion. I already spoke on this topic in our show, the Lucky D show, that it was getting all so, how should I put it? I don't even have the word for it. It was getting all, yeah, gay rights matter, Black Lives Matter, mental health matter, everything matters except sporting. So it is at a crucial point to being a little bit overrated. So I have to lean. I'm with 1 feet on the overrated side.
Okay, that's fair enough. And the second one, in the context of sporting, staying in shape, basic exercise, push-ups, overrated or underrated?
Underrated. I love push-ups, man. I do push-ups every day. Push-ups are amazing. Push-up get your yeah, push-ups. Yeah, underrated. Yeah, underrated. I really do like push-ups. I do a day. I do 40 push-ups because it helps me with when I think I could do some kickboxing again. I do push-ups on my fists, so my wrists are all good. It does something with your core and it gets the blood pumping. So no, I love push-ups, man. Push-ups are great.
What's
Do
what's
your
your
push-ups.
advice? What's your advice to people who want to get started but are afraid to start doing push-ups daily?
Do the push-ups and do not set a no, let me put it like this. My push-up regimen every morning needs to be 40 push-ups, and I need to get there at a certain point of time. So if I didn't do the push-ups a whole long time, I'm just gonna do every day the 10 push-ups. I know that by next week I'm gonna do the 20. I know that by 3 weeks time I'm gonna do the 35, and eventually I'll get there. But I'm not putting a barrier not to do the push-ups. So just do them. If you can do 4 push-ups, do 4 push-ups. Set a target. If the target needs to be 20 push-ups, just start, man. And if you fail at three, but just do them every day. Then you're off. Don't try and get the 20, and when you're getting up in the morning you're thinking about, oh man, I need to do the push-ups. The 20 push-ups, your target needs to be very easy. It needs to be, you must be able to do it before you brush your teeth, so you're not sitting there and you don't have use of your arms. The push-ups need to be easy, guys. So set a target and get there eventually.
Awesome.
I,
Yeah,
I quickly want
that's
to
a good
bring
one.
up I quickly want to bring up a tangent, like a quick side story. During one of our trainings in Tilburg, we had a training where we had to serve a volleyball. And every time we missed or served the ball out or in the net, we had to do, I don't remember how many push ups, but I think 3 push ups. And after like 15 minutes, we literally didn't have the power in our body anymore to get the serve across the net.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a fun one. So I also have two over unders for you. The first one is chess, overrated or underrated.
Very, very, very underrated, in my opinion. So
Do you,
I
quickly, do you consider chess a sport?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Most definitely, I do. You need to train. You need to train. If you're getting, if you're at a certain level, you need to train 8 hours a day. You need to know your opponent. You need to play into the things your opponent is doing. You need to be in shape, because if you do not train, you're not going to be able to win if you're not in form. I think there's even a physical part of the thing. So, quick story. Oh, this is so humiliating, by the way. For those people who don't think that chess is physical, I was very young. I could play a little bit of chess, so I was pretty young. I think I was about 9 years old or something like that, and I played qualification matches for the national championships. And I was doing pretty well, man. I was one match away of qualifying as a 9 year old for the national championship. So I was so proud. But then I had to play against a former champion. Oh man, I was sweating all over the place. I actually couldn't function. I literally physically crashed. I even threw up after the match. It was very very damaging. But I don't know if that's physical, but yes, I do see it as a sport. If yeah, you need to do everything that a normal athlete does. You need to train. It is less physical than weightlifting, of course, but in my opinion, it is considered a sport. And I do not know any type of training that you can do which is better for your mind. I played volleyball matches and I did some experience with this. Not matches, I did volleyball training when I had breaks. So in between points, I played a couple of sets, a couple of moves I made. And I actually reacted much faster after I played the sets. So my brain was going much faster. I can process things much faster if I am in good chess shape. So learn the damn thing, download the app, it'll be worth it.
So just to clarify, you are playing a volleyball practice match, and in between sets, you are playing chess at the same time, or just switching them in between. Was that right?
Yeah, so it was not a practice match, but it was training.
Okay.
So you get a couple of seconds rest. In
Yeah.
in in the rest, instead of taking a drink, I played some sets. I played a match on my phone, and I actually could react much faster to what was happening around me when I went back onto the court. So
That's a very
yeah, I
interesting
don't.
mental exercise to
It's it's
an
it's
experiment that
no.
you did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Very interesting. So to come to see how important the mind is, and I think that chess is the best mind exercise there is. So definitely underrated.
Okay, last one. Paris Saint-Germain, underrated, overrated.
Whew. Oh,
For context, for people listening, could you, while Dion thinks, could you
Okay, so a
explain it?
little bit for non-sports fans or non-sports listeners and people watching this live stream. Paris Saint-Germain is, of course, the biggest team of Paris, and yes, they have been splurging money and have been recruiting like the best players of the world. They bought Mbappe for $100 million years ago, and then they bought Neymar. They also have signed Donnarumma, which was the best goalkeeper of the past European Championships. And I'm leaving a lot of players out, but also recently they signed Lionel Messi. So basically, this is like the dream team of all dream teams. And I don't like, if we talk about super teams, I think the last team that I remember from this stature was the Real Madrid team with Ronaldo, Luis Figo, David Beckham, um, Roberto Carlos, and yeah, basically that's the last time I can remember this kind of assembly of superstars.
Okay, sorry about this, but I'm gonna do one sitting on the fence again, but I'm gonna explain. As a sports person, I say very overrated. Very overrated because yeah, you can't have a team spill throw a lot of cash at one football team because you own a country and then you don't even win the competition in France, which is seen as a farmers league. You don't win the Champions League with all the money that you invested. No, that comes to say that the Champions League is not for sale. But that makes it overrated for me. It's a team in France which is about 20 years old or something like that, and they don't really have, in my opinion, the credibility to be the team which they are presuming to be the big team with the loudest the superstars. And if you can't even win in France, you can't win the Champions League even though you spent about $1 billion plus, then you need to be very overrated. The commercial side of things, it's a very, very, very sexy team. They have the three biggest brands in sports. Not even in sports. They have three of the biggest brands, which is they have a uniform which is sponsored by Michael Jordan, which is a brand. I think it's pretty clear to say. It is a sporting brand, but it's also a brand as a person. They have Lionel Messi, who is one of the, if not the best players all time, which makes him a big brand. The impact that Messi made on the commercial side of things, the impact that he made on the social media side of things. I think there were about 42 million followers plus when Messi came along. And they have the biggest brand, maybe, in being Paris. So Paris is a big brand. Even yeah, it is a big brand. It is. There is a reason why all these players come to play for this team because they could live the glamorous life in Paris. So they have three of the biggest brands in the world all combined, and that is something people aren't really realizing yet of this football team. Sporting wise, they are not there yet, but they are most definitely underrated as the brand side of things.
I think that makes sense, and that's a perfect link to the next section. And I definitely understand the commercial side being underrated, and for a very small percentage of people, I'd say 0.01% of people in the world that even end up in that remotely fortunate position where you can, just get paid millions being showing up in a team, being a brand recognized by others, and not even having to perform as the sport. So the next question comes in. We talked about sports in general, the business side, the nuances in between. But for the people that are not in the 0.01% or this volleyball player in the Netherlands that's just, barely getting by or barely getting paid, what are opportunities that you see, or what strategies should people employ that want to do sports or perform in sports professionally to do after their sporting career or adjacent to their sporting career as a commercial or business side?
So there are a couple of things you can do. First of all, there are all the things that you get when you're sporting. To start with, the most important thing in my professional experience is this is not really sports related, but it's something that you learn. It is a skill, and a very important skill, in my opinion, is discipline. And people take that pretty lightly. So a lot of the times when I'm at work or something, and I'm not enjoying myself. I'm not happy about the things I need to do. It be to write emails, to do the boring stuff. I'm not enjoying it. I can always switch to discipline, because in sports, especially if you do sports at a certain level, it is by definition not always fun. You need to switch to discipline, to be disciplined. And that is a very particular skill that when you get that, you never lose it. So when things are pretty difficult at work, I can always switch and just go through the motions and be disciplined, and that's something I just learned. It is something that it is not so that you're either undisciplined or disciplined. It's a skill that you learn, and I learned that in sports, in particular, high level national team sports. The other
Is
things that you can, yeah, go ahead. You're on mute. Yeah, go ahead.
is there a difference between discipline and winner's mentality in that one, or do often people mean winner's mentality when they actually mean discipline?
Oh, there's a big difference. There's a big difference. Discipline is actually doing the correct things that you need to do. That is mostly on a longer time span. A winner's mentality is being better than something or someone else, and the drive that you have to achieve that, and that could be at the beginning of something, that could be at the end of something, and that is most of the time it's a certain shorter period thing, you know. Some players, they could be crappy the whole match, and at the end of the game their winner's mentality take over. Discipline is a lot more over a broader time span than a winner's mentality. So there is a difference. Most of the time, the winners, they know that you need to be disciplined to put up a certain performance. So players with a winner's mentality most of the time are very disciplined. The Most of the players who are, yeah, I can't even come up to an example of which player has a real killer's mentality and does not have discipline, but they are not the same. And of course, there, yeah,
I do want
go
to
ahead.
I do want to question, follow up that, and I might go a little bit philosophical, but I think you're the right person to answer that. Would you say that anyone could learn discipline, and could you say that anyone can learn winner's mentality?
Um, yes and no. I'm not. I'm not completely sure. You can get better at winning. It is trainable, but I do think that there is a certain, yeah, that's a talent thing. You just have it or you don't. But it is trainable. You can get better at it. But I don't really think that you can. I think that is something that which you are born with. Discipline, you can learn. You can get discipline. That's, I wouldn't say easy, because if you don't want it, you're not gonna learn it. But that is much easier to learn than that winner's mentality. But even the winner's mentality is trainable. But I do think there is a certain amount of talent, there's a certain amount of something that needs to be going in your belly, and I think you are, yeah, I think you're born with it. It's pretty yeah, it's
It's pretty
that kind of
philosophical.
Yeah,
discussion is
it's
Yeah.
the
that
classic
discussion,
nature
because
versus nurture debate.
yeah, because there are a lot of people who say that leaders aren't born, they're made, but yeah, you can learn it, but much more difficult than discipline. But I think that was not the initial question. What was the initial question? Oh, what can you do after sport? Okay, yeah. So I took the presenters route, the journalistic route, that side of the entertainment. Of course, there are a lot of event managing things you can do around the sport. So there is a lot of money going through this business. So there are a couple of things you can do. You can, of course, do events, you can do media, and you can also do training, because there are always people wanting to give you money to get better at a skill. So those are, in my opinion, three of the things that you can do to get better. And of course, it's a business. So if you want to enroll in that business, there's a whole industry that you can get into it. There are a lot of studies which you can do to get into that business. It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry if we're talking football alone. So yeah, there is something you can do, and there is something you can get out of people. If you walk between these people, you know the ins and the outs. So that is possible, yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna come with one last wild assumption based on previously mentioned stuff regarding sport and trying to relate it to business. So in the beginning, we mentioned individual small team sports. You have another dynamic there, another set of skills, more personal responsibility that you get out of it. And in the more larger team sports, there's more coordination, there's more complexity, there's more hierarchy, organization. So my assumption here is that the people that do the more individualized sports with more personal responsibility are more prone to go the independent entrepreneurial route, and that the bigger team, uh, you can see that as an organization, go through the more corporate, bigger company route to further their career. Would you agree? Have you seen similarities, or is my assumption just way off?
I don't have the stats. I haven't read the studies regarding that, but of course there are. I do think that you could put a manager of a football team, you could put in a company, and he would do fine. He would do pretty fine. But I don't know if you could put a player. I do not think that a player by definition has those managing skills because he's working in that big of an organization. So I think those worlds are different. You're learning skills, and you need to be intelligent, and you need to be driven enough to use those skills in the business side of things. But that is an individual thing. Of course, you learn the skills, but how do you translate those skills into the business side of things? Um, are you talking about people? Are you talking about players, or do you have other
More,
things in mind?
yeah, more from the player, the athletes themselves perspective. Because as a athlete doing individual sport or a small team sport, uh, mainly comes with the self discipline and the personal responsibility. Whereas in a larger team, there's more teamwork, there's more communication, there's more layers to go through to get to as a group get to a certain level of performance, right? As you explained before. So mainly focusing on the players in this regard.
So once more, I haven't seen the social studies about these things. I presume that they are made, but just by, yeah, my experience and my way of thinking, I actually don't really think there's a lot of difference, because especially when you get to the higher level of things, team players are most often very individual. For instance, football players, when they give you a pass, most of the time they're done with you. I need to bring the ball as perfect as I can to my teammate. After that, I need to make the run. I don't really want to know what you're doing. I'm going to look at it. But primarily, I need to do my job perfectly. It is the manager and that is why they are getting the big bucks. He needs to make those things stick. So there are a lot of individual. I almost want to say there are a lot of Yeah, it's very controversial what I'm saying here, but there are a lot of individual players who come together as a team. Of course, they know how to work. Of course, they know how to lead team meetings, which are very, very, very important. They know how to speak in a group. They know when to say something. They know when to receive feedback, and those things you don't have in individual sports. So I'm very comfortable in the business sense now. When we're in pretty serious meetings, I do not take things personally. I know how to get feedback. I know how to give feedback. So in that sense, it is a little bit different. But I personally don't really think that, based on the playing side of things, it makes a lot of difference.
I do want to
And I
jump
can't
in. I
believe I'm
think
saying that.
no, but I do. I mean, from group dynamics, I think playing team sports really helps in group dynamics anywhere else. So I think I completely agree with that. Diego, I'm going to provide with a different perspective as well. Um, when you're an individual sports person, you need to spend a lot more time branding yourself compared to when you're in team sports. So there also could be like a spin-off of those individual athletes who have to brand themselves, leading more to entrepreneurial quests and those kind of things. So it that could also be. So I think there are a lot of layers and a lot of dimensions to it. So it's kind of hard to say like if your assumption is correct or we can validate it through numbers because like Dion is saying, we don't have the numbers. But there are a lot of variables that could make it that it could very well be true to what you're saying. So Dion, quickly for you and for the people that are listening and or watching, what has been the biggest change that you have to make towards the end of your career? Because you're still actually, can I still call you, aside from COVID, I can still call you an active sports player?
Yeah, yeah, you could still call me an active sports player. But is there anything different at the end of my career? Yeah, of course. I'm not as explosive anymore, so you need to be a little bit smarter. That's actually the only thing that makes a difference, and you need to be a little bit smarter. You're a lot more respected. So when you say something, it weighs a lot different when you're at the beginning of your career. But you need to be a little bit more smarter with what you are doing, and that is difficult because you're much more aware of your actions. And most of the time in sports, that awareness of what is good and what is not good is most definitely not an advantage. But that is something which you need to work with. You're much more efficient. You're much more, yeah, you're just smarter, and that's not yeah, that's pretty logical, I think. But of course, no, I'm playing a balancing act between being media and being a player. So that is a bit of a difficult balancing act, but I enjoy it, man. I love it. It's one of the fun things of Suriname. You can do everything at once.
So to close this off, on that last note, you being in media now, especially sport media, and as you said, being able to do many things as at once here. What's your favorite or one of your favorite things having this media perspective while also having the player background? What's your favorite thing about being a sports media presenter?
To tell you the truth, that I get some ROE from all the hours that I made as a sporter. I can I can choose to bring some experience back in broadcasting. So that is something which I'm very proud of and very happy with. So I can use my experience that I gained in winning things. I can use my experience in losing things. I can use my experience in training to relate to other individuals, especially sports individuals. I know I didn't play professionally in England, but I can relate on how it is to train every day, and I know how it is to lose. I know how it is to talk to a media person when you lost. I know it is to talk to a media person when you won. So those kind of things is I enjoy a lot. It is also, I don't know if it is a good thing or a bad thing that and maybe it is the position that I play. I can, I also have some awareness, is maybe the correct word to use, that I know at this point in my career and this as a media broadcaster, that it isn't about me. It is about the story, and most of the time the story is the athlete, or most of the time the story is the team, or most of the time the story is the journey. So I could relate with that, and maybe that is because I am a setter at volleyball, and most of the times it's not about you, except if you lose, and it's always your fault. But if you win, the attackers get all the glory. And I don't think media is, especially broadcasting, is different. As a presenter, you are a host. It's not about you, it's about the story. And that is something I'm pretty happy that I am aware of that, and I can use that to 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 do this job that I love.
And still, if the show loses its host or the team loses its setter, they immediately feel their loss.
Exactly. It's something just like, it's just like sound in a movie. It's just like a defensive midfielder in football. You only notice these things when they're bad. So when the sound is shitty, you're very, very aware of it. When the sound is great, nobody says anything about the sound. When a defensive midfielder is shitty, everybody is looking at him. Hey, can this guy run across or around the field? But when he's good, nobody says anything. Nobody knows why everything is going into place. And that is a position which I am in. Yes, when I make a mistake as a presenter, everybody is very happy to laugh at it. I'm having the laugh as well, so that's not really a big problem. But you notice when he's pretty shitty, but when he's good, everything flows, and you almost never even know he is there, or you do know, but it is yeah, challenging.
Awesome. Anil says, great story to hear from you and how that translated into, I guess, what you're doing now. Jean-Luc, got any last things for Dion, or shall we wrap it up here?
We can wrap it up with the usual final question. Dion, if people want to reach out to you, on which platforms can they do that, and how can they reach out to you?
Well, they can do it on my Instagram. That is what's oh god damn it, what's here at Dion Brun, and I could also I need to get this mirror image figured out. So you could do it at Dion Brun on Instagram, and on Facebook just look Dion Brunings up. It's Brunings. So it's plural, yes. Yeah, so that's look me up on Facebook, look me up on Instagram. I'll if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to react and to have the conversation with you.
Awesome. You may even find them in Russian interview shows soon. Uh, No, but with that being said, Dion, we appreciate you sharing the journey and also giving the perspective on how the sport world is and the challenges within it, but also the opportunities career-wise and on doing something afterwards, what people can expect or what to do. So I think that brings some much needed attention. As you said, the sound guy, the setter, they're kind of underappreciated, but when it goes bad, it goes really bad. And some of these things need to see the light so people actually know why stuff is bad. And I think you have shown some light on some of these things, definitely. Um,
Yeah, man. So I'm lucky. I don't want to use the word blessed, but I'm lucky that I can do something that I love. I don't think there's gonna be people who are working harder than I, because I'm not working. I'm just enjoying myself when I'm at work. So I'm pretty happy that I'm on this journey and I'm enjoying it, man. I'm enjoying every single moment of it.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for tuning in the comments. Thank you for your comments, your feedback. Always appreciate it. And as usual, this episode will be released on Saturdays on the podcasting platforms. And next week we will be back with social convos at 4 p.m. We'll have a different time slot again as we're continuously experimenting with a different time slot to accommodate guests. So we hope to see you again next week at 4 p.m. If you can't make it, you can always rewatch it or re-listen to it. With that being said, Jean-Luc, roll us out.
This was Social Confoes. See you back here next week. Remember, it's an earlier time than usual. We're experimenting. But this was Social Confoes. See you next Tuesday. Bye bye.